All right, how's everybody doing? Doing okay too, thank you. All right, well, we are in week 8 right now, and we are actually coming to the end of the course pretty quickly. Um, there's 4 weeks left, but we missed most of Thanksgiving, so week 10, we only have 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, and this Wednesday is a holiday, so we're down to 16, 17 days of classes left for this course. So we're in good shape. We've covered what I was hoping to cover up to this point. We're going to keep going with Bash and looking at different versions of text processing. So regular expressions and then awk and then sed this week. And then we'll go back into some C stuff after that. So let's begin with questions. Any questions on using dialogue? Questions on homework 7? Anything like that? Having trouble seeing how to create multiple dialogues on the screen at the same time. That is tricky. So it can be done, and I've had a little bit of success with it, but by and large, it's pretty awkward. And let me see what the buzz phrase was. It wasn't a mixed form, it was something else. Oh, the and widget thing. Yeah, getting them to display simultaneously, I don't know if there's a good, reliable way to do that. So I would try to figure out how to do it with only one dialogue displaying at a time. You can go from one dialogue to another directly using this and widget switch, but I don't think that I've been able to actually display 2 of them at once, which is kind of a bummer. How do you set up and use the /temp/calendar directory? So let me do this for myself. So let's hop onto the Linux server. And suppose, I've got my group and I decide I want to store my files in this common area. So I can just go to /temp/calendar. And I can make myself a directory here. I'll just call it Nick's Homework 7, right? And there's a directory I can work with now under /temp/calendar/Nick's Homework 7, and it's owned by me, and right now nobody else has access to it, so I can put my stuff in there and have it remain private, but it's a nice central location, so that if I give this code to somebody else and I want them to be able to use it, I can open the permissions on this, right? So I could change the permissions on that so that anybody can access this. So now if I log in as my test user, right, I can make a file in there. And it's owned by me, right, the test user, but if I'm working with Nick, then Nick can hop in there also. right? And I can still see that file, and I can still read it. And if I want to be able to collaborate with my teammates, I can make that file, you know, read-write for the world. Potentially it lets other people poke into it and disturb it, but, you know, hopefully we're all playing nice. So yeah, just go into /temp/calendars, and you can say makedir, mkdir, and that will let you make your own directory to work with. Let's see, I was wondering how you wanted the deleting appointments option to look and work like. That is up to you. The goal is, you know, presumably after you've made an appointment to be able to basically get rid of it. So I'll leave it up to you, but a few options. You know, one option, if you're storing all of your appointments in the file, just go through the file and remove that line, right? So so different ways to do that. If you want to search for a line in a file, you can say grep, you know, some pattern, and a file name, and this will search for every line in the file that contains this pattern. So let's go to so let's say I want to delete you know, Barney Rubble from this file. So if I say grep Barney for names, it'll show me every line in the file that contains the pattern Barney. If you do a grep-v, that reverses the search. It will show you all the lines that do not contain your pattern. Okay, so I could say grep-v Barney, and that shows me the lines that don't contain that name. And so if I send this to names.new, there's my original names file with 5 lines in it. Here's my new names file with 4 lines. And then I could move names.new to names, and that deletes that line from my file. And your other option is just tag the record with a symbol that says this is deleted, and then you have the option of introducing an undelete as well by just clearing that symbol. But the question was apparently about the mechanics of it, of the interface. What I meant is, do you want something like edit box or something more like checklist for the deleting? It's up to you. You can do whichever you like. I think someone from the previous section said they were just going to do an edit box, and as long as you make it in a way that's not confusing to the user, that's fine. But I'd rather you didn't just dump them into an edit box and leave them to, you know, figure out where their appointment is and what the format is and so on and so forth. But it's your choice, right? Do what makes sense to you and be creative. Could you give a quick example of successive dialogues, like one opens based upon the answer, another one opens, and based upon another answer, a different one opens? Sure. So you're going to stress my knowledge of dialogue from memory here. Okay, so let's try this. So dialogue, right? We can just put these things inside bash scripts. So let's ask the user to enter a date if they like. I have a cheat sheet right here, so you're not actually stressing my dialogue knowledge because I've got all my notes sitting here. Ask the user to enter a date if they like. Okay, so let's say dialogue, put up a yes/no box, do you want to choose a date? Okay, so this will display a yes/no dialog, and for that, the result of which option they chose is stored in $?? All right, so so I'm going to say answer equals $?, and then if the answer was equal to 0, then they answered yes. So I'm going to say dialog calendar. Choose a date, no height and width, and I'm going to capture that date as an output FD1. So I'm going to say, you know, D equals back quote, and throw all of that inside back quotes. Otherwise, I'll just give them a default date. So default date will be 2021 January 1st. I think they do it like this. And then let's just throw up an info box showing them what date they've selected. Trip will be on $D. I don't know if this will work or not. Let's see. So, but what's the spirit here, right? So we're going to put up a dialog box. It's a yes/no box, and if they hit yes, then the status should return 0. If they hit no, the status should return as non-zero, 1 in this case. So I'll check the status, and if it's a 0, it means they said yes. So I'll pop up a calendar and capture the output from that into this variable D. If they said no, instead of popping up a calendar, I'll just set D to some default date, right? And then after all of that's done, we'll put up an info box showing them what date they've chosen to take a trip on. So let's see how that works. So do you want to choose a date? So if I say yes, we'll get a syntax error. I lost 2 points on my exam there. So you got to say then, after, and if. So do you want to choose a date? Yes. So we'll go ahead and we'll choose Wednesday. Alright, and it says trip will be on November 11th, 2020. If choose a date, if I say no, then it takes a default date and says trip will be on that. So something like that. Really, I mean, it's all bash, and you can do pretty much anything you want in bash, right? Dialog is just a way to pop up something that looks like a GUI, and, you know, it's a fancy version of echo and read, or read-prompt, to get information from the user or display information for the user. Do you have a preference on what flag we use for sending the output? No, so dash standard out seems to do the same thing as dash output FD1. So either way works. There's so much to dialogue, and you're totally welcome and encouraged to dig into it and find better ways to do any of this stuff. And the only time I'm getting dogmatic on you is with bash scripts, right? I want you to stick to whiles, ifs, arithmetic, the way that we described it in the beginning. But outside of that, free reign, right? Be creative, explore, do cool stuff, have fun. All right, good. More questions. On our presentation, will we also be describing our code? Yeah, so for presentations, I'm going to ask that you demonstrate your program to us, right? Show us the basic required behaviors, which I think there were 4 things, and then tell us what the 3 optional features are and show those, and then just do a quick run through of the code. Everybody's code will be different, and people will discover different ways to do things. anything that you think is, you know, particularly interesting, or that, you know, you worked really hard on, or you thought was very clever, or whatever, right? You can highlight that. But basically, just, you know, sharing your project with the class and with me. That's the basic goal. And you know, mostly I'm interested in its behavior, right? So does it do what it's supposed to do? But yeah, we'll also do a quick run through on each group's code. So to create multiple appointments, we just increment the number after output FD. No, so this output FD always has to be a 1. That's basically saying I want to send the result of this to standard out. But multiple appointments, manage those inside bash, right? So if you're making 5 appointments and you've got maybe a for loop, or, you know, a do while or something like that, you know, you can write those out to a file as they're being created. Or we're going to talk about arrays in a few days. We could make an array of appointment information, or something like that. Dialogue is just, you know, display this thing, get some information back, and don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to get dialogue to do what you need to do at a higher level than that. Do it yourself in bash, right? It's a whole lot easier. And just use dialogue as a way to say, hey, show this, hey, get some information back. But process all of that information inside bash, just like you would in a stick picking game or whatever else, if that makes sense. And again, file format, totally up to you. There's different ways to store the stuff. Some are easier, some are harder to work with, so do what makes sense there. All right, good. More questions. All right, well, let's talk about regular expressions. So, regular expressions are a way to describe patterns of characters. And when I say character, I usually mean a letter, a digit, punctuation, a symbol, space, anything. Okay, so character doesn't just mean a letter, right? Oh, can you explain workflow by forking a repo? That's probably a better office hour thing, because that would be a few lectures worth of answer. But yeah, so Git, there's this idea of branching, right? And you can create different branches. No, let's talk about it. This is important stuff. This is also going without a safety net. But let's play with Git for a minute, because, you know, some of you in groups may be working on this. So really brief introduction to branching. Let's suppose that I have this directory. Let's make a copy of this. All right, so here's my work directory. I've got a bunch of files in here, and I want to put it under Git control, so I do git init, and I'm just going to put everything in there. So I'm going to git add star, and I'm going to commit it, and I'm just going to do a test check-in. Okay, so terrible Git use here, meaningless messages to check in. I checked in everything and so on, but we got all the stuff under Git control. So it says I'm on branch master. Okay, so this is the main branch. Okay, so the basic idea is with Git, we can have this repository that has files. We add them, we modify them, we re-add them and commit them. But at some point, we can create a branch off of this. So this is master. This could be a branch called, dev1. Or I might make a branch called Nick. And these are kind of parallel, right? This repository, this branch of the repository, Nick, looks exactly like the master branch looked right here before I created this branch. And I can make changes to files over here, and it has no effect on the files back here. It's like two parallel universes, right? And then somewhere along here, this person dev1 might make a branch, and they get their version of the universe, which looks exactly like the master branch here, has nothing to do with the Nick branch, and has nothing to do with changes made to the master branch after this point. So we can have all these sort of parallel worlds where people are doing development on code, making changes, testing, deleting files, ripping everything up and starting over again, hopefully not. And they're all independent of each other. And then at some point, if you've done things cautiously enough, you can do a merge. And you can say, okay, I want to take the changes that were made on this branch and merge them back into the master branch. And typically this is done where, the master branch is the one that's considered to be clean and, releasable and runs and, is in a well understood state. And then if somebody wants to say, okay, now I'm going to add a feature for deleting appointments from our calendar, right, you start doing that on a new branch. And, most likely you're creating new scripts or making modest changes to the main script that calls this delete script and so on. And then once you've tested this out and everything looks like it works, you can say go ahead and merge that back in. And if everything goes the way it's supposed to right now, the master branch looks like it did before, but it's got these changes in it. And it can be tricky, okay? Depending on what you do in these different branches, it may not be obvious how to merge things back in. If I completely change all the files from this master branch, and this person has also completely changed them, and now I've got three fundamentally different looking versions of my code, and I say let's merge those back together, that may not be something that Git can do. It may throw up its arms in the air and say, there's some conflicts here, and it will show you the two versions and show you what the differences are and say you figure it out yourself, which is a good thing to do sometimes. So let's see how badly I remember all of this. So I'm on the master branch. So let's make a new branch, Nick. Nope. Git branch Nick. So I've created a branch called Nick. I'm still on the master branch. Okay. But I've created a second branch, and if I say check out Nick, now I'm on this new branch Nick. Okay, so I don't know. I'm gonna make let's just pick on main.c. So this is what main.c looked like, and I'm going to just make my comment block really big. So I'll make a big comment block. Alright, so there's what my main.c looks like. If I go back to the master branch and I look at main.c, it's my original version of main.c. If I go to the Nick branch and I look at main.c, it's my new version. Right? I have two copies of that file, but I actually have two copies of my entire project. Right? One under this branch called Nick and one under this master branch. Where it's just my original code. Now if I say git merge Nick, that will try to take the changes from Nick and merge it into my master branch, unless I got this necessary. So it should explain, what this is about. And it shows me what changed. And now if I look at main.c, it's my modified version of main, right? Even though I'm on the master branch. So that's a high level view of it, right? So basically you can say git branch name, that creates it, and then git checkout name will switch to that. Git checkout master will switch back to the master branch. And in a large project, you might have, a master branch, which is the main repository. You might have a development branch. You might have a beta testing branch. You might have an alpha branch. And you might have, different branches for different features that are being developed. And typically, when you want to start working on a new issue, right? So now I want to sort my appointments, right? You might start a new branch just for doing that development work. And if things go haywire and all that code ends up being like a disaster, you just ignore that branch. Just go back to whatever branch you forked from and start over again, right? Or, that usually doesn't happen, but it keeps development separate, right? And then once you've tested your code and it all works great, you go ahead and you merge it back in. And if you're doing this by yourself, this is pretty clean, right? Because you're not likely to start making radical changes on multiple branches and then try to merge them together. All right. So yeah, come by office hours if you want. We can mess around with that more. But that's almost my entire scope of knowledge about branching in Git. All right, can you standard out rather than output FD? Yes, that is allowed. Again, feel free to explore any of these things as far as you like and do what makes sense to you. Can you make more buttons and label them? Yes. So you can make one extra button. So there's the yes/no dialog. And you can say extra button, and it will bring up a cancel button. And you can say cancel label, and you can change it to something else like maybe. And you can also set the OK label and so on and so forth. That's weird that it changed it to extra. There's an extra label tag as well. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I changed extra. So cancel label can be maybe and never. And you can set the OK label and that kind of thing. And that works on most of the dialogues, but I think you're limited to 3. But you could change your third button to say, show more choices, and then pop up a checklist or a radio box with more options available. So, right, think Minecraft, right? You got a few things you can use, and you've got to put them together to do more fancier things, right? And so these are your building blocks, right? And you just got to figure out how to put them together to get more interesting behaviors out. All right, cool. Other questions? And dialogue is not the only way to make GUIs. There's other tools. There's Zenity, which I used to use for this class, that lets you pop up dialogues. But there's other versions of this. Dialogue is a pretty full-featured one for what it does. And this is all just kind of like high-level replacement for actually writing a GUI using TK or using Swing or whatever. If you like Python, there's ways to make nice GUIs inside Python. In Java, we can use Swing, and we'll wrap it in Window Builder in Spring, and so on and so forth. But from a bash script, right, being able to do one line like this, and get a nice pop-up like this where you can specify choices, it's kind of a quick and dirty way to do some interaction with the user. Seems to work pretty well. All right, so regular expressions. So we started talking about this last week. Basic setup is, we can search for patterns in, say, a file. And a pattern can be a succession of characters, like ABC. And in general, when I say character, I mean any character, letters, numbers, uppercase, lowercase, digits, punctuation, spaces, okay? Any printable character, okay? So a pattern could just be a particular arrangement of characters, and it means, in this case we need an A followed immediately by a B followed immediately by a C. A pattern can also include a period, which is a wildcard. And this matches any one character. So on the bash command line, wildcarding is totally different. A question mark matches one character, and an asterisk matches any number of characters. Okay, those are not regular expressions. So everything we're talking about this week, regular expressions, is different from doing an ls star.c, for example. Alright, so period is a wildcard that matches any one character. If we have something, I'm just going to call it x, followed by an asterisk, that means 0 or more of whatever that thing is before the asterisk. So for example, if I said a asterisk, this would match, 0 or more letter A's. If I do a period asterisk, that matches 0 or more of any character. So that will basically match any succession of characters. Alright, we can also anchor, so we can use a caret and a $sign. So caret means start of line, and $sign means end of line. And these don't actually mean the character at the start of the line or the character at the end of the line. It's called an anchor. And it means, if I list a caret, whatever comes after that has to begin from the start of the line. And if I have some pattern followed by a $sign, it means that pattern has to end at the end of the line. Okay, but the $sign doesn't actually represent that last character. It represents kind of the stuff after that last character. So we think of our lines as being anchored with a caret in the beginning and a $sign at the end. We can also do bracket, and we can say, A, E, I, O, U. And this will match any of A, E, I, O, or U. So any of those characters inside the bracket. And we can do bracket caret followed by some collection of characters, and this will match anything except A, E, I, O, or U. So it negates the inclusion of those. And we can do fancy patterns like A-Z or A-Z, uppercase A-Z, etc. to specify ranges. So we don't have to type out all of those. All right, and someone just asked a good question in chat that we're about to talk about. So let's play with some files. We'll just hang out in our Git directory. So let's play around with this file. So if I search for, let's say, any character A through Z. So remember in VI I can say slash and I can put in a pattern. So if I say slash set, right, that will show me the next occurrence of this pattern SET. Well, here it found the word setting, right? And if I hit the character N, it will repeat my search. So here it found the word set, and here's another set, and so on. There's lots of setting going on in my bash RC. There's an unset, right? And it's a very, you know, uninformed pattern match. It's just looking for SET. This is part of the word setup, right? So, so that's not actually set, right? Now, if I wanted to search for just SET followed by a space, I could say slash SET space, and now it's just going to find those things set that I was looking for. Except here it found, you know, S set, and here's some more S sets, and there's an X set. Well, maybe I don't want to include things like unset, so I could search for space SET space, and now I'm going to find things that are actually just the word set, right? But if I have a set in the beginning of a line, it's not going to match that, right? So maybe I search for anything that's not an A through Z, followed by set, followed by a space. All right. So we can look for things using a slash, and that's useful sometimes to be able to wildcard and use regular expressions. But more often, what we're doing with regular expressions is we're doing substitutions. So we want to replace one string with another. All right, so and we can play around with this in VI also. And the way this works is colon. So a colon takes us down to the command prompt in VI, and we can say substitute slash old slash new. All right, so so for example, on this line right here, I could say substitute set with, let's do an uppercase set. All right, so that word set got changed to uppercase. I could substitute the letter E with, I don't know, I'll just replace it with haha, right? So X term changed into XT haha RM. Okay, and this substitute command replaces one occurrence of this old pattern with this new pattern. Okay, so this is replace once. We can also say substitute old new slash G, and this says replace everything on the line that we possibly can. Anytime we find an occurrence of this pattern, replace it with this new pattern. So that's what the slash G does. So still on this line here, I can say substitute E slash haha slash G, and every occurrence of E should get replaced accordingly. Right, so we've got all this extra stuff on here now. Let me put some space in here. All right, we can also specify a range of lines, colon line 1 comma line 2 followed by the substitute command. So if we go up to the top, I could say from line 1 through line 5, substitute E with haha, and let's do that globally everywhere. And now my first 5 lines, that change has been made. And we can use a $sign to represent the last line of the file. And the first line, right, we can just use the number 1 because the first line is number 1. So if I wanted to make a change everywhere in a file, right, I could do colon 1 comma $sign, substitute E with haha, and do it everywhere. And now everywhere in my file that I find that letter E, I replace it with another pattern. All right. And the other thing to note is that these slashes can be more or less any character. They're traditionally slashes, but if we wanted to use a slash inside our pattern, if we wanted to replace a slash with a number sign, for example, how do we know that we mean a slash as part of our pattern as opposed to a slash over here or over here? So we could use a different character instead of a slash for our search. So for example, on this second line, I could say substitute, and I don't know, I'll just use an exclamation mark. Substitute slash with, you know, the word slash, and do that everywhere. And so it's replaced all of my slash characters with a pattern. So that can be handy sometimes. All right, so let's go into our names file. And let's say we want to delete, so this is a last name, first name, middle name. Okay, Barney Rubble, Betty QED, Flintstone, and so on. Let's delete the last name. Let's get rid of all of this stuff before the first space. And we might try to do that by substitute from the beginning of the line, any succession of characters followed by a space. Let's get rid of that with a slash. And the question is, what is this pattern going to match? So if I have a name like, you know, Smith John J, and I say let's match this pattern, beginning of a line, any succession of characters, what is that going to match? Technically, I could match nothing, because an empty string is 0 successions of any character. I could also match an S. That is certainly a succession of something that matches a period. But I could also match an SMIT. That's a succession of 4 characters that match a period. So what is going to be matched by this pattern dot star? If I search for dot star and I replace it with nothing, it wipes out the entire line. Now if I search for beginning of the line, followed by a dot star, followed by a space, so beginning of the line, dot star, space, and replace that, that actually takes out Smith and John. Right? So beginning of a line followed by any succession of characters followed by a space, that could have been Smith followed by a space. but it's equally justified to say that pattern matches Smith space John followed by a space. All right, so here's the rule you have to remember. Regular expressions, regex is greedy. It will try to match as much as it possibly can. So going back to an earlier question, if I match A asterisk, that will match as many consecutive A's as I possibly can. So if I go back to this file and I say substitute number followed by a number sign asterisk, right? This first number sign matches a number sign. The number sign asterisk matches 0 or more successive number signs, and I replace that with a number. This will take any multiple consecutive number signs and replace them with a single number sign. So for example, down here, where I used to have, oh, I can't show that to you. Up here where I used to have 4 number signs in a row, I'm going to say replace that with 1 number sign, right? That'll do that. All right, we are out of time, so I will see you next time. There was a lingering question in chat. I'll answer that now, but you're good to go. I'll see you next time. Is there a simple way that I can change my stored appointment data into easily readable display? Write a bash script, do a do while read line to read from your appointment data file, and each line you can break it up using awk, using things like regular expressions, right? So we'll do some examples of that tomorrow, and then you know, format it however is going to make it more readable, and use a file box to throw it up in a dialogue and let people scroll through it and so on. It's totally up to you though, right? That's the overarching answer. Pull the information out, format it, organize it, and then display it with a dialogue. That would be my suggestion. All right, cool. We are out of here. I will see you next time. Have a good one.